Hi, my name's Jeffrey, and this is my podcast project, tentatively titled Real Talk, or EEL Talk. Um, and yeah, I figured the only thing I could probably talk for 10 minutes about is probably movies, so yeah, I'm just gonna do that. So, I'm just probably gonna recommend movies that really spoke to me, or um, made me feel something emotionally, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Um, so the first movie I'm going to talk about is Babel. It's directed by Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu. He also directed movies like Birdman, The Revenant, both of which he won Best Director for, by the way, which is pretty crazy. Back-to-back years he won Best Director at the Oscars, which is insane just to win once, but let alone 2 times, 2 years in a row. He also directed this movie called Morris Peros, which is great as well. But I'm going to talk about Babel, which came out in 2006. It has Brad Pitt, Kate Blanchett, and Gael Garcia Bernal, all three of which are great in this movie, especially Kate Blanchett. So the basic premise is the movie starts out with these this family, and they're buying like a little like hunting rifle, little bolt action hunting rifle, and the dad buys it from one of his friends, and the boys his sons take it out, and they try to just test it out, and they start out like shooting at rocks, and slowly they move up to there's cars running along this road, and they start just taking pot shots at the cars, and they start shooting at a tourist bus, and they take a shot, and the bus stops, and that's when it kind of cuts to a different section of the story with Kate Blanchett and Brad Pitt's characters. They're at a cafe or something, and they're just talking, and it follows them, and when they're on the bus, and there's it's like a shot of just Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett just in the bus seats, and Kate Blanchett's looking out the window, and just there's a bullet hole just appears through the window and hits her in the neck, and and Brad Pitt doesn't really realize what's happened at first, and he looks at it, and his wife just got shot. So the movie basically, that's the first 10 or 15 minutes of the movie, and it just kind of follows 4 different interlocking stories. There's the 2 kids in Morocco that shot the bus, and they're on the run from authorities, and there's Kate Blanchett and Brad Pitt, and they're trying to get Kate Blanchett to a hospital, but they're stuck in Morocco on vacation. And then there's back in the United States, Kate Blanchett and Brad Pitt's kids are with the nanny, and the nanny wants to go to her son's wedding, and she has to bring the kids with them because they couldn't get anyone to cover for her. And then the fourth story is it's seemingly unconnected, but it's about this Japanese girl who's deaf and mute, and she's just kind of she's very lonely, she's looking for love, and yeah, so the movie's really just it's just a meditation on love and communication and what it means to be a person, really. And the movie it cuts from each story, from story to story, and slowly you start to realize how they all come together, and it's how we're all how one event connects us all, no matter our language or our culture or where we're from. It's we're all people, and we all have the same. We all experience the same things. Experience, loss and fear and happiness and joy, and it's really just a wonderful movie, and I think more people should see it. This movie is a part of Inarritu's Death Trilogy, which also includes Amores Perros and 21 Grams. I haven't seen 21 Grams yet, just because I haven't had the opportunity. It's not on Netflix or Hulu or anything. But Amores Perros is also really great. It's kind of got the same kind of thing with the interlocking stories, but and that movie's completely in Spanish. Yeah, but Babel is just, it's a really great movie. It really is. I'm just kind of going on, and it's like the title even. It's It goes back to the Tower of Babel, of course, where God supposedly, scattered language, and that's where the title comes from, of course. It's a great title, honestly. It really encapsulates what the movie's about, and just I'm trying to think of a specific scene that wouldn't give away the movie, but that really shows the genius of it. There's a scene with the Japanese girl where she goes to a deaf mute school where everyone there is deaf and mute, and they communicate with sign language, and they meet up. They see this group of boys, and they go to a club, and you kind of get a master shot of the club, and it's filled with people, and the strobe lights are going off, music's playing, and then it cuts to this close up of the girl, and it's silent, and the strobe lights are going off, and she's really into this guy, and you can see it in her face. You can see the happiness in her face of being with this guy. But then it's still silent. He goes off, and he's with a different girl, and you can see in her face that it just drains of the happiness she had, and it's just depressing. And she runs out, and she runs out of the club and goes back to her house, and that's really where her story picks up. And so that's the that's 3 of the 4 stories. The 4th one is the nanny, like I said earlier, and her son is getting married in Mexico, but she has to babysit Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett's kids because Cate Blanchett got shot, and so she takes the kids across the border, and on the way over to Mexico, everything's fine, and they have a good time, and the kids kind of get a little culture shock. But on the way back, there's one of her nephews picks her up, and they go over to Mexico. They cross the border going into Mexico, and everything's fine, and that goes pretty smoothly. But the nephew got super drunk at the wedding, and he gets stopped coming from Mexico to America, and he gets stopped at the border, and he's gonna get detained. So he just speeds off, and kind of leaves his aunt and the kids just in the middle of nowhere in the desert, and they just have to survive. That's that section of the movie, and all these four stories are just interconnected so well, and all of them are interesting, and none of them drag, which is really hard to do, because especially for me, whenever movies do that, I always end up getting tired, I guess, or not getting tired, but I just end up liking one story more than the other. And that certainly happens here, of course. I think that's unavoidable, but it's not like one of the stories is fantastic, one of them is fine, the other is bad, but all 4 are really well done, and you can tell that the people behind the scenes really care about what they're doing, and they really care about the characters and what happens to them. And none of the people, no one, even the authorities, the border patrol agents, police officers in the movie, none of them are portrayed as bad people. No one's like a villain in this movie. You understand everyone's motivation and why they're doing what they're doing. And maybe even though they do kind of these awful things or these questionable things, you understand why they do them. And it just kind of creates this really interesting gray area of morality that most movies just don't have. In most movies, there's the hero and the villain. It's very clear which one's which, and it's just not interesting anymore. But this movie it's really great, and I think everyone should watch it. So yeah, I guess that's the end of my podcast. Hopefully that I can make that 10 minutes. Let's see what happens. Thanks for listening, and hopefully at least someone listens to my recommendation. Probably not, though, let's be honest. Yeah. And hopefully someone watches it and takes the same lessons that I got. That's really the goal of this podcast, I guess. So thanks for listening. I appreciate it.